everyone, and welcome back to video number 4 of the Solidworks RC aircraft design. So last video, I went over a quick overview of how we got to this stage right here with all of our cross sections using original engineering data using X, Y, and Z curve through points, or curve through an XYZ point, and also the data for the top radius of the full circle, and then the bottom, of course, is ellipses, as well as our top, bottom, and then our side mold lines for the fuselage. In this video, I'm going to show you how to loft all of this into a fuselage. So once we have everything here, you want to come up to features, and then you want to hit lofted boss or base. Click that, and then here you see it gives you a lot of options. It gives you profiles, start end constraints, guide curves, options, and feature scope, and a bunch of other stuff. Most of this you really don't need to worry about too much. At least I haven't really found much of a reason to use it. Start end constraints is one of them. I'm sure there's some reason for it, but right now, don't worry about it. So up in here, profiles. Profiles are going to be your cross sections. Whether you got those using some imported data like I did, or you drew it, it doesn't really matter. The one thing that does matter is all of your cross sections have to be either closed or open. So what that means is if you have a circle, it has to be a complete circle. If it's a square, it needs to be a complete square. Like, there can't be any open areas. You'll see when I click here, profile 235, it highlights a half circle with a line between them. That's going to be a closed surface, or a closed sketch in this case. If you notice, I'm only doing half a fuselage at a time. The reason why is it's easier to draw half an airplane and then just mirror the other half instead of having to make sure all your dimensions and everything are perfect. So again, draw half the airplane. So here, start with profiles, and you just start selecting your profiles. And as you see, as you select them, you get this kind of bulbous looking yellow area. And that's actually kind of what the thing will look like as you start going along. Just start clicking until you get all of your profiles selected. And then eventually you see, hey, I selected that profile and it got all, like, the yellow went away. Does that mean it's going to fail? Not necessarily. It just means that your preview is probably not working quite right. Like you can see here, when you click on it, it's got this weird dip. So just keep selecting your profile. So here we go. See, now it's got this really weird looking, like it twists on itself in a couple of places. So don't worry about that just yet. So again, just keep selecting all of your profiles. Once all your profiles are selected, you come over here to your guide curves and click inside the box. Now you can click your top fuselage curve, and you see here, when I click it, it doesn't do this one little area. That's because this part and this part were drawn separately and not as one solid line, because at the moment I didn't have this nose bowl station drawn. So click that line, and then click this line, and now you see the little arrow, the little gray circle here moved. So now that considers this one full continuous line. You can also do select an open loop or select a closed loop. In this case, we're just going to keep there, and we're going to hit that. But for whatever reason, it didn't select it, so just come right click and delete that, and we'll try again. And ta-da! There we go. Oh, hey, look. Now, our preview is all back, and it looks much nicer, but it's still not perfect. We've got 3 profile outlines, so you want to use all of those outlines. The more of these outlines you can do, especially on really complex shapes, the better. So again, click the bottom one, click the extension that I put on it separately, click that. And as you'll see, especially with more complex shapes, the more guide curves you have in it, the more refined the shape becomes. And then here we will do our side profile. And there we go. We have all those 3. In this instance, if you had another solid body already here, you could come down here and you could do the close the loft. Typically doesn't work. Show preview. You can do merge result. This is the one that would come down here to your feature scope. to where you would select automatically or manually by undoing the select box, and you can merge two solid bodies. In this case, we don't need to worry about any of that stuff. So we'll just have it like this, and you come up here and you would click on the green check button. In this case, I've already done it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to unhide the part. And now what we can do is we can come down through here and we can hide a lot of these sketches. As you see here, I've actually already drawn the nose bowl. That was that revolve that I had done. And now the fuselage and that will be one solid part. Up here in solid bodies, you can just use that to select one solid body. Another thing is I've already done the spinner revolve. I'm not going to show you how to do those because it showed you in, I believe, video 2. So no big deal there. So that is how you loft a fuselage, or in this instance, what my buddies have referred to as a pickle, because it looks like a pickle. Anyways, so we got the solid body for the fuselage done. We don't need to look at it, so I'm just going to go back and rehide that. There are some other items that we do need to look at, though, in order to start drawing our cockpit bulge on the top. Unfortunately, that email I sent myself with a photo does not have it, but I have a nice little diagram that if it ever shows up, I'll edit it into the video. But basically, it's just a side view of the fuselage, and it gives you a couple of different coordinates. So I'll give you just do a quick little sketch here just to show you basically what the cockpit looks like. So come to front view, hit sketch, come up here, and it's basically just an L shape, a little bit of a line there, and then it has a curve to the top. The curve and this line here are tangent. The center line of the curve is always centered on, it's not centered, but it's coincident with the vertical line. So basically, this is a very rough cross-section of what the top cockpit looks like. And then what the sheet gives me is it gives me the radius of this curve here. It gives me the distance from this point to the center line. It also gives me the height from the reference plane. In this case, we're using our origin point to the very top. It also gives me the reference dimension from this point to the line here. One thing I have noticed is that dimensions are extremely close for them to be drawn by hand, and I mean down to within 1/100th of an inch, sometimes 1,000th. But there are some that are still just a little bit off, not by much, but just a little bit. So what I have done is I have come down through here and I have started drawing all of these canopy sketches. And as you see, I like to name all my stuff sketch what it is. This case, I'm doing 78.7 is station 78.7. 89 is station 89, 101, so forth. And when I made these curves, or in this case, these are actually sketches, not curves. I should go back and rename those. That one dimension here from our origin point to here, some of these were dead on and some were just a little bit off, like within a 50 thousandths or so. But on the sheet, what it says is this point is coincident with the mold line of the station. The mold line is the outer surface of the fuselage. So instead of going through there and guessing what all of those dimensions would be, I just clicked the corner point, held Control button down, clicked that cross section, and came down here to coincide it. And I just did that for all of the stations. All of the stations but one. I still have one to draw. I got to do station 70.6. So for station 70.6, I'm going to hide all of those just to make my life much easier. Then I'm going to come up here to station 70.6 plane, which is right here. Nope, that's the curve. I want the plane. I'm going to click on the station. I'm going to click on sketch. And then I'm going to come up here to our line. The line is going to be down the center. It's going to come there. It's going to come out perpendicular there, our little weird angle, and then I'm going to draw our curve here. And it's just something that it's not exact at the moment. While that's highlighted, I'm going to hold Control, highlight this line. I want those to be tangent, so I'm going to click Tangent. And then I want our center point of the arc and this line here. Again, I'm holding Control every time I select two entities. I want this to be coincident. So now, according to my data, the width point here to here, Smart Dimension tool for this, is 16.21 inches. So there's that. And then from our reference plane, which in this case is our origin, to the very top of this dimension is 37.47 inches. And then the radius of this curve is 10.65 inches. And then this line here, I want to make sure it's vertical. As you do that, see it changes some things. Excuse me. Allergies are kicking my butt this morning. Now I'm just using the arrows and the control arrows and alt arrows to make sure to find out which one of this drawing goes to this drawing. So in this case, again, since I said this point is coincident with the mold line of the station, click the point, hold Control, click the mold line, or in this case the station curve, coincident, and there we go. And just to show you how close these dimensions are compared to what the sheet says it should be, from this point to this point on our data says it should be 20.07. I'm sorry, 20.00 inches, so 20 inches even. And look at this, it's 20.007, 7 thousandths of an inch off. I mean, it blows me away for an airplane that was designed in 1939, 1940, that they're doing this stuff with no computers by hand, and they're within 7 thousandths of an inch. It's just amazing. Those guys, I don't know. You don't see things like this very often. All right, so there's what's that, station 70.6 canopy sketch. So 70.6 canopy sketch. And again, I'm going to hide all of this stuff because we don't really need it anymore. It's just going to confuse things later. This keeping the 25-minute long videos is more difficult than I thought. Trying to cover a ton of information in 25 minutes without going too fast or too slow. Speaking of, if you think the pace is a little too fast, leave me comments because I know I talk really fast. So if you need me to slow it down, just tell me. Tell me to slow down. Anyways, okay, there's that. And now we have all of our canopy sketches. It's also the top view. There we go. Don't need that anymore. So there's basically the majority of that top, we'll call it the cockpit spine. I also have another sheet that I just found is actually the physical canopy that I did not realize I had. Well, it's some of the canopy, not all of it. There's one good one in there. That's about it. So I'll just run through real quick, try and make life a little easier. Eventually, nothing is ever easy about doing all this stuff. I am going to need station 62.4 back, or 6, whatever it is, 62.4. I'm also going to need 191. I'm going through my data right now, looking at see what stations that I have information for. And I even have some in here that aren't part of it. Like here on my data, I have a station 196.25, but there's not an actual station with a fuselage cross section here. I believe that's just a like a brake line or something where they added a part just to the ventral fin. So because of that, sometimes you got to go through here and add a station originally to your fuselage station sketch, which can sometimes make things really interesting. 224.95 I have, and also have a 201.75, which is also not in the data packet. But hey, we're doing good enough. All right, there we go. So first one we need to do is the 62.4. So we'll scroll back up here, find our 62.4 plane. We want to sketch. Oh, already did all that. Imagine that. This is what happens when you don't pay attention. And again, we're just going to do our weird little shape thing here. There's that. And oddly enough, this one's a lot more different than I thought. Okay. This one is interesting because it's actually it's a curve through X, Y, and Z points. So because of that, I'm going to have to go do some more secretarying and make up those curves. But before we do that, what I'll do is we'll actually loft this part right here. So we're going to come to our right plane. We're going to click sketch. And then again, we're going to do our spline. Here, our spline, just going to do 1, 2, 4, 5. We're just going to do a point over each one of these areas here. And then hit escape to get rid of that. Use our arrow buttons to kind of turn it, to twist it a little bit around the vertical axis. Click this point, hold control, click that point, coincide it, next point, the next point. We want those two to be coincided. Same here. So just going to go down the line, make it all the same, make them all coincided. There. Kind of repetitive here, isn't it, guys and girls? Welcome to the world of CAD. Here, and here. All right, there's that one. You can see there's your side view shape. And looking at the data on my sheet, honestly, that looks pretty dang close. I'm going to do the same thing again for the bottom. Get to the end, hit escape, come back through, point while holding control, make them all coincident again. And like I said earlier, the more guide curves you can put in something, typically the better the surface model or the solid model will become. It gives the program less chance of skewing things. And then there's some things that are like super simple that you don't really need to worry about having a ton of guide curves for. This happens to be one of those where it's pretty dang close. So there we have our side view, top, bottom, and whatnot. So now we can exit that sketch. Now we have to do what they call a 3D sketch, because what you see is none of these are really on a plane, because here we have our right plane at this line right here. Out here there is no plane, but we have all these vertical planes, but nothing where these points are. So here at the little arrow under sketch, do 3D sketch. Select that. Check the time, doing pretty good, 18 minutes. And then here again, we want spline. The 3D sketches are kind of interesting because you got to skew it just a little bit to where you can see, like, hey, I want it right there, X and Z. And then there, you see we've got the little yellow box with a point on it. And we just start doing that, making sure the point that we're going to put in with the spline is on the point of this part or the sketches that we have drawn. Make sure they're all coincide, get to the end, hit escape. Now another thing I'm going to do is, since we have all of these points where these radiuses are, I'm going to also draw a spline there. Again, this is the whole thing of the more guide curves, the better the outcome. Put that back to the side, and there we go. You can see this. Sometimes you'll find some like a little odd spot, like here. It's kind of got it dips down. You would think it would just curve across the top, but hey. All right. So there's all that. Now we can come back down and it's like, hey, look, you hit the sketch button, nothing happens. You got to hit the arrow. You got to exit out of the 3D sketch again. So now we're going to come back here to features and our lofted boss and our base. And here are profiles again. Just like I showed you the fuselage. Select your profiles. These are all fairly consistent shape-wise, just dimensionally they change. So it's not too big of a deal. You see it gives you a nice preview. And honestly, with how that is, you probably don't need to use the guide curves, but if it's just doing straight lines between here and it's not going to follow that nice curve. So guide curves, we got them. We're going to draw them. Select, highlight your guide curve box. Come over here, click a line, arrow key, or the check mark. This one, check mark it. And as you see, as I do these, it kind of refines itself just a little bit more. And there we go. Now we have our loft. We can sit here and merge with that result, in which case we want to auto select it. We want to merge it with, we're going to unselect auto select. We want to merge it with just the fuselage loft, because we don't want it merging the fuselage and the spinner and everything. Once we have that done, so we got the fuselage loft highlighted here, green check arrow, and boom, there we go. But hey, where'd it go? Well, since we hid the fuselage, it's also going to be hid. So if we come up here to solid bodies, highlight that, and then unclick or do the eyeball to show, there we go. Now we have the beginning sides of the fuselage and the cockpit. So that's 2 lofts, 22 minutes into it more or less. So we'll call this video complete for now. I'm going to go and do some secretary work at importing some of these X, Y, Z curves for these stations that I have here. And then I'll come back and I will show you all the process of importing something like that, as well as finishing up the top of this cockpit nacelle. So, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.